Okay, welcome everyone. Week 5, DENT 1159. This is our first project. We've completed the setup best we can with the average condylar guidance of 30 degrees and a minimum overbite and overjet. Just to review before we get into the wax up for try-in, I've taken this off the articulator, so I'll just simulate with my hands here, but it's similar on the articulator as you've seen in the previous. The first thing we're going to check before on the articulator is protrusive. And just to go over it again, when the mandible moves forward, I'll do this slowly, that we have posterior contact cusp tip to cusp tip. This is buccal cusp tip to buccal cusp tip of the lower. Moving from a one-tooth to two-tooth relationship to a one-to-one. So the anterior is just touching. And as you can see, 1-3 is touching 4-4. And then we've eliminated any kind of hyperocclusion. Now this is for try-in. And when we go through the equilibration of after processing, we can also fine-tune this adjustment because there is some give, some very small, versus average condylar guidance to the actual condylar guidance of the patient in this group function. And conversely, we'll check the other side the same way. And then once protrusive is okay, we can move into a balanced occlusion. If I can move in closely here, the balancing side, lingual cusps of the upper will touch the buccal cusps of the lower, and in the anterior, we still have some contact. And over here on the other side that you can see is the working side, which is really, if you've got too much overbite in the posterior, then that working side may disclude this. But if we followed the setup guidelines, we're going to get very close to maybe 95% of these balancing contacts, and at the same time anterior contact. And this gives us 3-point contact. So when the patient is moving in a circular motion, which most people do, forward, left lateral, right lateral, that this denture is stabilized in a 3-point contact, anterior contact, working side, balancing side. Conversely, the other way, or protrusive, where we have anterior contact and posterior contact, to minimize the tipping of the denture. If the denture is minimized in its tipping, then the denture, if it's minimized in tipping, there'll be less sore spots, less bone atrophy, and more stability, and conversely more success for the patient. And that's our job as a dental technician and as part of the dental team. So if you hadn't worked on this in the same day, I went and I re-soaked my model. And then what you can do, again, this is for try-in, so I need this to be removed off the model perfectly and look like a finished denture. I'll go and I'll seal it back to the model, which I already had done, and I just pulled it off. And then go ahead and recheck my excursions again. I think the biggest thing I see that from, let's say, the beginning dental technologist, maybe because it's a wax electric, I'm not sure if we're doing a lot of crown and bridge, but we don't really heat up the wax hot enough. We're afraid to really, use the wax and it's hot as possible. And when we do that, a little bit hotter, we can eliminate any kind of air bubbles. I just had some debris from a different inlay wax on my spatula. That's not going to be good. When we're doing the setup, hopefully we added some wax so we don't have to add it after our balancing and protrusive work. Because if we have to add too much wax after, you'll see that this wax, not being a setup wax, it's a base plate wax, that there'll be some shrinkage to it. And then you'll have open bite in centric occlusion. So what I'm doing is I'm just heating it up gently, just to take the pressure off my hand, because only a little bit, to make the wax just a little softer. it'll be easier to carve. So you can use the end of a number 7. You can use, I used something like this. It looks like an arrowhead on the Hollenbach carver. But the first thing to do, and hopefully you didn't add too much wax, is around a 45 degree, or if we go the other way, obtuse angle, right? So that's like 135 degrees. If we look at this, this would be like 90 degrees. This would be like 135 degrees on an angle, because we have to think that the food debris will come down into the chewing cycle and then down the spillways of the teeth and then deflect off the margin. We don't want to create a 90-degree ledge on the margin of the tooth for, you know, food debris and everything else to collect on, you know, as like a window ledge. So I've got this on about 135-degree angle, if you want to look at it that way. I'll show you again, maybe this way. So this would be 90. This is an acute angle. This would be obtuse angle, about 135. And that's my starting point. I'm not trying to carve the gingival margin all at once. I'll repeat that. I'm not trying to carve the gingival margin all at once. I'm getting close, a little slightly above, because I just don't want to add wax now. So I'll do one carve this way. Now there's many ways to do this. This is just, I would say, the basic, right? So I did one this way, and then I reversed it and then removed it off the tooth this way, okay? And then you can either do more than one at a time, if you want to do 2, or 3, or all of them. And then you can come back and remove this off the tooth this way. And like I said, I'm anticipating when I'm setting up that I'm waxing up. So I'm trying not to, you know, splatter wax all over the facial and buccal aspects of the tooth for 2 reasons. It's a lot of work to take it off. And number 2 is they're just going to create more shrinkage. As you can see here, I'm scraping the wax off. There's no super fast way to do this. There's not like a tool that says, okay, we'll remove the wax off. You have to carve. Remember, this is for try-in. So this is a dental technology job now. If my confidence in the practitioner's vertical dimension and bite registration, then maybe I'll be giving him like a super wax up, almost like for finish. Or her, excuse me. If my confidence is really low in the bite registration, then no sense spending 3 hours on a wax up. I'm exaggerating, but a long time on a wax up, knowing that I'm just going to reset it anyways from a check bite. If that dentist has a history of, you know, sending check bites and resets and remounts, then, you know, we can give him or her slightly something more basic. Now, if you notice here, I'm going back and I'm elongating the wax up. I think the biggest mistake I see the beginners in the acrylic partial denture class is that we didn't expose enough of the tooth structure. We need to expose more tooth structure for 2 reasons. Giving it the vertical length of the tooth that it deserves. So when the patient smiles, if the smile line is here, you know, we don't have this huge gummy smile. I want to see more tooth. Number 2 is there is a natural undercut to the tooth this way. So if you can visualize our first layer of our investment, that the second layer will actually have something to grab onto to draw off. If you remember holding and drawing of the split pack investing. So I'm just going back slowly over and over and over again, creating a little length each time. If I did it all at once, I run the risk that the wax will crack and split and peel. So I've kind of heated it up with my spatula. Not that my spatula was hot, but work hardening the wax. And then it makes it just slightly more pliable that I can kind of creep down and get more of a gingival margin length that I've anticipated. The first run through, I was guesstimating on the higher side my gingival margin length. Now this will take some practice. If you over carve, so if I do this one and I come way down here and I go, oh wow, I've exposed the tooth. Okay, this is time to go back to your Bunsen burner and add back. Now, if you've trimmed the necks of the teeth, no better person to wax up this denture or festoon the denture than you, because you have an idea of how much tooth structure is below the wax here. So if you give it to someone else and they're like, oh, geez, the setup guy trimmed the tooth so badly, and now I'm exposing it. If you've got any voids or splits or bubbles or debris or something, you can go back and fill it in. So I'll do these two bicuspids together. And while that wax is kind of molten now and it's solidifying, I'll go work on another tooth. Now, you can watch other people's videos on festooning. I'm giving you the 101 version because I think that's where we need to start. I've seen some on the internet, on the damaged goods website for DTG, dental technologist, or denturism, or whoever has the hosting site. And I see a lot of very aggressive festooning in the finish stage. It looks great. They're proud of themselves that they were able to polish these grooves. But really, when the patient smiles, you're not going to see any of that. What needs to be here is something that is not going to adhere to any food debris and something that will deflect the food so the tongue can come out and clear. The tongue can come out and clear the food debris or saliva, and there is no rough surfaces on here. Now, that doesn't mean we just create it flat like a wall. I think we should have some anatomical considerations to the root emergences, especially in the canine areas, which I anticipated that when I was setting up the teeth and added a little bit more wax there. I'll go back and... Now, I didn't take this off the model yet. I'm still going around the gingival margins. The lingual side, depending on the type of tooth mold it is, again, I don't want to create a ledge, and this will kind of eventually feather right up. There's a little bit tighter gingival margin on the lingual side. As you can see, I'm just not leaving any ledge there at all. Sorry if I was off the screen. Let me move back a bit. That's easier for me. Hopefully I wasn't off the screen the last 5 minutes. Again, I didn't do it all at once. I'm going back. Again, this is wax up for trying, so there may be some adjustments. Now, let's say I'm satisfied. Let's say I'm satisfied with all this, carving of the gingival margins and removing wax off the teeth. Might as well take the wax off now because this will be a wax up for finish. And if we have wax on the teeth, we know what's going to happen in the boil out stage. They won't adhere to the flask at all. So you can use something now next. You can use the back of your number 7, whether your number 7's big. Oh, where's my other number 7? There's got to be a 777 here. Yeah, there's a smaller one. What else we have here? I mean, don't use something this big, but I guess you could. I'll use the back of my Hollenbeck. If you have a bigger number 7, that's fine. There's a whole host of number 7s here. There's a big one. There's a small one. And this one I would prefer. It's got a larger spoon to it. This is Hufrides, made in England. This one looks like it's they're made in Italy or Pakistan. It doesn't matter. And this one here, I think, is Henry Schein's American version, probably made in China. But what happens here is you have to get used to these, depending on the alloy they're created from, that the heat temperature is different and the heat retention is different. So you get used to how much heat can be applied with the Bunsen burner to each of these number 7s will determine how useful that number 7 is to you. So let's get back to here. I'll use the Hollenbach. If you don't have one of those, I'll use the big one, number 7. And now I'm just roughly creating some emergence of this root exposure, kind of angled off. In the 6th semester, we will do an implant denture. I was hoping to get to it this year, but I always leave it on there, but that's one day. We'll get to that in this 3rd semester. What we're going to do is we're going to characterize our acrylic and festooning, and we'll go over in detail, possibly a little bit more, of this type of festooning and the working together with the muscles of mastication and expression for the spillways of food. But this will just give you a rough idea. Everything's kind of angled to the distal a bit there. I'm reducing more interproximally or interdentally between, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, leaving a little bit more in 3. I'll get to this later, but maybe we might ditch here under the flange just a little bit. And then, oh, my glasses keep hitting this, I'm sorry. And then we need like a little toothbrush as a tool or something. What else do I have that we may use? I think that's all I have here with me now. Just toothbrush is fine. Actually, I should be going this way, away from the teeth. Sorry. But I'm not finished carving yet anyway, so I'm going to go back, and if there's any debris here again, I may refine. It's not a one and done thing. You have to go back and refine. Refine. And just to finish off this completely, I should do the other side. Now, I won't do the lower here because it's just more of the same. The anatomy is very similar. It's just a little smaller in the anterior 1/6. And if I use the Hollenbach, but if you want to use the back of your Lacron, I mean, you decide how much wax you want to remove. I mean, you could go even something as large as this for maybe some bulk extraction of wax. If the wax is a little bit hard on your hand and we don't have the hand strength, we can kind of help ourselves by heating up just slightly, make it a little bit softer. And I'm just switching around just to show you that any tool really will do the same job. I'm going away or towards the gingiva with my carving. I'm not going up. Oh, banging my lamp. Try to keep a clean desk so this wax doesn't get underneath your articulation or anything else on the model, because this is going to go for try-in. So it's not just the tooth presentation, it's the articulation presentation. Because we want to reinstill confidence chairside with the dentist and the client that this denture will have roughly the same extensions in wax as the finished product. So there's no surprises. And then they can have met expectations at the insertion phase, aesthetically and even phonetically slightly. We're not going to leave big bulky blobs of wax on the back. Now, in the anterior section, depending on the mold of the teeth and how they're shaped at the back, I think we should expose the lingual aspect of these teeth right to the margin and then have that flush with the palate. Depending on the mold of the teeth, some are sawed off at the back. If you've had an immediate denture or maybe there was a lot of interference with the ridge and you had to trim the inside of the teeth or the lingual side, that's fine. No one's going to see it. Then you would just raise a consistent level of margin on the lingual side of the anterior teeth. So if I was to trim, let's say this central had a lot of this lingual missing because there was a ridge height here, then I would maintain that height all the way around, just so it doesn't look really inconsistent. I would hide that kind of reduction of the prosthetic teeth. But like I said, it depends on the mold of the teeth. I mean, if it's a porcelain tooth, we've got to cover the pin. I don't think we're using too much of those teeth anymore. But I know some of the older style teeth, rather than today's full complement of anatomy, these lingual sides would be, cut in half. Because they figure, well, that we don't need that plastic back there because no one's going to see it, because we're just going to see this part. Again, I'm not doing it all at once. I'm slowly getting down to the level I need. If my wax is a little bit hard, I can soften it gently, because if I do this too much, I'm going to get wax on the teeth, which I'll just have to go back as such and take it off. Some denture teeth have an aggressive anatomy, which may be a little bit too obtrusive to the patient's tongue, because we've got a tongue in here now. And that's a real big proprioceptor for the client. And when something's foreign going into the mouth, the tongue is just the probe and explorer around of all these new surfaces. Any rough, sharp edges will be determined by the tongue immediately. What's going to also happen when this is introduced to the mouth, the saliva flow is increased. Introducing a foreign object to the oral cavity, the saliva flow increases autonomically. And what happens is, also autonomically, the brain is salivating because we have a foreign object in the mouth. Salivating for two reasons. Either expel it, it's a foreign object, or continue to salivate and swallow it. And the tongue is going around as the proprioceptor, finding out what's going on in here. So we have any sharp edges, the patient will determine within 14 seconds, there's a sharp spot right here. And then rather than having the dentist explain, well, this is just a wax try-in, be patient, it'll be different when it's finished, and we'll make sure that it's smooth, just eliminate that conversation and have your wax up exactly, marginally at least, the margins of the teeth, exactly how you would have it in acrylic, because it will be replicated in the processing stage coming up very soon. This seems a little bit bulky on the inside here, right? Let's not forget about maintaining this tongue space here for phonetics, right? And this area here, just in behind the sensipilla, any kind of different shape here will change phonetically, and we'll discuss. Hopefully, we'll get there about what sounds will be altered from different festooning areas of the denture, like TH or F or S. These phonetically pronounced letters are affected by the shape and location of the teeth and the denture base. Sometimes it cannot be resolved because, the patient had lost their teeth. They didn't lose their palate. The palate was probably the last thing. It's not going to atrophy as part of the skull. Things are going to come in and down. But really, this aspect here, that now we're adding a substantial thickness of plastic to reduce fracture of our denture, we've got some phonetic issues going on here. Especially if the client has been edentulous for a long time. With tooth loss and edentulosism over a long period of time, the tongue will start to grow, the cheeks will collapse in, the vertical will be overclosed, and now we've introduced this huge, object of plastic with teeth, and there's a big adjustment that's going to be needed of the client. And this consultation is onerous. lots of consultation with the patient should exist if they're a first-time wearer. Obviously, if someone is a seasoned denture wearer, their expectation of what a denture is has already been established. And again, I'm going over the lingual aspects again. I'm going to expose a little bit lower, maybe a little bit more rounder. Now, I know you see me going on an acute angle here because I can't get my hand inside the palate. So what I'm doing is I'm carving this way, almost like at a 45 the other way. And then I'm going to reduce this ledge with the back of your number 7 or any instrument that you get accustomed to. Get the wax off here. Now, let's go back to the anterior section here. I still see some areas. Now here we've got some conflicting things in denture festooning with a lot of people where they want to maintain, you know, this kind of papilla shaped. Let's get a pen and pencil here. So they're saying, okay, so I have my 2 bicuspids. If I can draw 2 bicuspids as such, they want to maintain this kind of, let's say, plump area here and then inside here. So it has this kind of S shape to it, this interdental papilla. That seemed to be an older, I shouldn't say older, still a popular belief. But I see now with more natural looking dentition and more aesthetic considerations from the client that we're trying to really recreate natural. And then even if we have a slight, and I mean slight food trap interdentally, that's fine. They can take their teeth out and wash them. I mean, we have undercuts interproximally when we age between our teeth. And I think this depth in between shows the emergence angle. And you see new teeth molds from the, let's say, even Dentsply's, what's it called? Oh, my goodness. I just had a Genios or Vita's Physiodens or Ivoclar's Veneris too, that they have a full-bodied neck. So you can wax mesially, distally, interproximally longer and show the depth of the tooth. Not just the facial aspect of the tooth, but the depth, meaning mesial, distal, interdentally. And then sometimes that plump papilla doesn't work. I've left a little bit here, like an incisal, a labial frenum. Kind of exaggerating it a little bit. I've got the root exposure here. Now, I've taken longer than I normally would because I am blabbing along. Now, when I'm satisfied with how much I've taken off here, you can see I want to create a refraction of light. So if there's saliva on here, there's a refraction. It's not like a wall that's monochromatic hitting this. I'm going to take it off the model. And as you can see my border, if you didn't have a good border in your occlusion rim, this is your time to correct it. Because I'm just going to say, oh, wrong, it's not smooth periphery borders. I am taking off the excess. Contouring it as if I was to use a burr contouring acrylic from the processing. Don't try to cut it off all at once. It may split, crack, peel. And then you'll be repairing. As you can see here, I've got this kind of junction line. There, it split on me a little bit from the addition of wax, but I think I have enough too. Now I'm using this 7R knife. You can use any. I guess you could use this one here, if that's the one you have. Or the plaster knife's a little bit big for this. But another thing we're looking for here is frenum relief. Nice and neat and clean. Patient's going to put this in their mouth. So if there's any kind of wax debris under here, any flow of wax under the base plate, remove it. Don't add wax here. Don't put this inside here and change the fit on the model. You can't do that. You can maybe go, if you had a void, you could go slightly and maybe a pinpoint, but something that would not change the fit of this on the model, therefore not changing the fit in the patient's mouth. So I'm going to contour back here the posterior flange. And this is something of a style, maybe. This is really what's going to separate some dental technicians from others, is their version of gingival contour or festooning. This is for trying, so I don't want to be too aggressive. Only because I'm lazy. I don't want to waste time. I want it neat. I want it clean. I want to have the right bulk or labial buccal lip support in the corridor. I can go now with my alcohol torch gently around the gingival and smooth that off where I've had my knife marks. Try to stay away from the gingival margins here. Oops, off the screen again. Try to stay away from the gingival margins again here, because you'll just go back and carve them again. So I'm just staying at the top half here now. And you can still see some of my number 7 or the Hollenbeck I used grooves. If I want to go in, I want to make it a little bit deeper, I can go back now and kind of join, let's say, smooth off the junction between where I was carving wax from the flange up into the margin. Maybe a smoother transition is what I'm trying to say. Let's do this side here. It was a little bit bulky still. I gave it a bigger, stronger canine eminence. You can see that I left a little bit of the labial freedom. This is personal choice, personal preference, what's going to determine between you or other laboratories to others. But the number one thing is neatness, cleanliness, exposure of the teeth. Don't underexpose the teeth by having high gingival margins on the teeth. Right? You experiment how much alcohol torch. I mean, I've even seen some people, you know, they flame it and then, oh, it's off the screen. They flame it and it's a little soft and they go with the brush like this and they go, wow, stippling. But I know that looks really kind of, you can see I'm flaming it, and hopefully you can see the stippling under here. I'm not a big fan of stippling because I'm not going to be able to polish this that great. It's just food's going to get stuck in here and calculus debris, etc. And I don't see, if I've lifted my upper lip and I don't see my gums looking that healthy, especially even at my age, and I'm a lot younger than the denture wearer. But still, it looked kind of cool. Sorry, that's maybe not the right word. You decide you're into, because you'd hate to have this kind of saying, wow, that looks great, and then now you can't reproduce this in plastic, right? If you can't reproduce that in plastic, then maybe don't show it at all. Again, I want to meet expectations at every step of the way. So I'll just calm that stippling down a little bit. You can still see, again, away from the gingival margins, please. I'm just softly, you need an alcohol torch, I think, to do an efficient job. Now, if you want to get over the top, which we will, I can bring in magnification here. Maybe this side. We'll just go with the big side of it here. And you can take something really sharp. And go and clean up gingival margin. I'm almost doing scaling here. Now, a lot of dental techs say, well, use such a sharp tool, you're creating an edge. But if you look at the wax debris I've taken off on my spatula. Do you see that? that will be acrylic eventually when I process. So I want to make sure this is spotless of any wax on the facial buccal side of the tooth. And you can see what I'm taking off. That little bit of wax, that's horrible. That's got to all come off. I'm not going to start by doing this. This will be my end. And I can refine, because I want to have that investment replicate perfect. And look at all the wax I've taken off on this spatula here. Now, it's kind of stupid of me to put that there, because I could just zoom in, I guess. I don't know how great that is. Maybe we need some light, though. Now, this is my crown and bridge instrument for some occlusal anatomy. And I'm refining that gingival margin exactly, not just a smush of wax. It's exact, and this is what's going to make it look realistic. Again, some of the seasoned dental technicians saying, wow, that's pretty sharp. He's going in there making an undercut. I'm going in here interproximally. You can see the wax I've taken off there. Ooh, oy, oy. Nothing on the facial, cleaning each tooth as I go, checking each one. Well, again, if this is no confidence with the dentist's vertical dimension or bite registration or even shade selection, I hope not, then I'm not going to go to this length. I really not, because I know I just have to change everything. But if I got a lot of confidence in what I'm doing with this dental team partner, then you can see what I've taken off there. I mean, it's endless. Right at the end, the last thing you can do is maybe take a tissue and a little wax solvent. Don't spoil it by saying wax solvent's going to do my job. Right? That's just going to ruin your wax up if you splatter wax solvent all over. I've got a tissue, and I'm going to go on the tooth here and take the wax off the facial in the tissue. But I'm not touching I'm trying not to touch the denture base with the wax solvent. That'll almost kind of melt that margin I have there. And then I'll just have to go in there and trim acrylic off the tooth after. Now, we don't want to put wax solvent in the patient's mouth, so we can go after with some soap and water and wash this off. But this is something, let's say, basic. I can still go in here and refine. I could go for another half hour and play around here and keep talking to you guys. But again, what's to keep in point is the length of the tooth, the consistency of the margins, the interproximal depth. I'm going to make this one a little bit deeper so it's consistent on both sides. The neatness of the wax up. The neatness of the wax. I got a little bit of void here. I can fill that in. And then on the underside, which I'll do a little bit of soap and water here, that I don't have any debris and that my frenums are open because I don't need the dentist to do the job when I can do it for them. Maybe a little bit over-exaggerated labial frenum. I'll reduce it. Relieve these frenums as if it was a finished denture. And then I'll clean up inside. So, clean model, clean wax up, clean try-in, smooth wax. I'll get back to the palate here. Smooth the palate off so the tongue. You need alcohol torch for this procedure. But you got to be careful not to just ruin everything. I'll go back here and do the top again. Again, stay away from the teeth. I just clean them with the wax solvent. And there you have our wax for try-in. So I anticipate that we get this done, checked off, and then tune in back for wax for finish, which will be slightly different because we're going to put our post-dam in because we have not yet. The dentist hasn't quite decided how much far back we can go. And then we're going to seal this down and then invest and process. Thank you.